The movie begins with our guy named Bush being held at the police station. They are beating him up. The officer got tired of beating him to get a confession, but it was useless because our friend is stubborn. Finally, he decided to tell them his story. He said, "As far as I can remember, I lived among gangs and drug trafficking. My childhood was dark and miserable. I lived with my mother in a small, modest house. Because of the extreme poverty we lived in, my mother started working with gangs, delivering goods for them just to put food on the table. But the day she got caught, they sentenced her to 24 years in prison. From that day on, I lived as an orphan, without a mother or father. I was always subjected to racism and bullying. At school, everyone looked down on me and mocked me, except for one girl who always defended me. When I grew up a bit and turned 17, I was still living in that same neighborhood. The gangs there didn't like that I minded my own business. While I was shopping at a store, a thug confronted me and started insulting my mother with filthy language, words that no one could tolerate. I lost my temper and saw red. My friend Bar told me to ignore it and move on, but when he started insulting her too, without thinking, I pulled out a gun and shot him in the head, and he died on the spot. Anyway, after that, we see him being transported in a police van with a guy named Thluck. They were brought to a reformatory because they were still under 18. They were taken to the warden's office to finish some procedures. As soon as they entered, Thluck noticed some drugs in the office, which seemed like a bad sign. They waited for the warden, and as soon as he arrived, the first thing he did was ask about their neighborhoods, because in this reformatory, they separate them based on neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has a feud with the other. The warden noticed Bush wasn't talking, and started provoking him as if he hated him. He deliberately sent them to the section of the rival neighborhood. Bush asked him, "Why don't we go to our own neighborhood?" The warden stood up and said, "You are too curious. Listen, the rule you must follow from now on is to listen and obey." Then he pushed him, and started beating him severely with a stick. Afterward, he took them to get their heads shaved, and called a guy named Beer and his clique. Beer was the leader of the rival gang. The warden told him, "I've left these two for you. Take good care of them." Beer replied, "Don't worry, boss. After seeing what we're going to put them through, they'll beg for death and won't find it." When the warden left, Beer started provoking Bush and took the chain he was wearing. Bush just stared, not understanding anything. Since it was his first day there, he didn't want to cause trouble and followed orders. Then they took them and started shaving their heads one by one. On the other side, we see a group having fun and laughing. This group is from the same neighborhood Bush belongs to, and they are the opposite of the other gang. They are like a family, laughing and enjoying themselves. A guy named Frank talked to their leader, Bengal, saying, "I heard news that a kid from our neighborhood killed someone and they brought him here." Bengal replied, "What do we care about him? Everyone should mind their own business." When night fell, and everyone was asleep, Beer sent one of his men to Bush and Thluck and told them, "Get up, the boss wants to have fun with you tonight." Bush of course refused and went back to sleep, even though he knew it would cause trouble. Poor Thluck was terrified. He started begging Bush to go with him, but the man took Thluck by force to Beer. Beer told him, "You have two choices. Either you let me do whatever I want with you, or all these guys you see here will take turns on you one after the other." Thluck thought about it and found no solution but to agree. You might wonder why they chose him out of all the prisoners in the cell. Quite simply, this guy is transgender. At the same moment, we see Bush getting a severe beating from Beer's men because he disobeyed orders. The next morning, the whole gang was gathered to eat. Bush was late and found the food was gone, so he went to the server and asked him to scrape the scraps left in the pot for him. When he took them and was walking away, one of Beer's men stopped him and knocked the plate out of his hand, throwing it to the ground. But Bush didn't care. He bent down, gathered what fell on the floor, and took it to eat. Bengal's gang was watching. Frank told Bengal, "This kid doesn't even defend himself. He's of no use to us, and we can't let him join." Bengal replied, "If I were in his place, I'd do the same, because if you don't eat here, you'll die." When they went to the showers, Beer and his clique surrounded Bush and began bullying him. Beer told him that water in this place isn't free, and he must pay. Bush was surprised and asked where he would get money. Beer replied, "Don't worry, you'll pay with something else." They threw him to the ground and Burr started beating and kicking him severely. On top of that, they brought Fluck and told him, "Go ahead, hit your friend." Fluck didn't want to, and started crying, but when Beer threatened to abuse him at night if he didn't obey, he agreed and started beating Bush. When he finished, all the prisoners started kicking Bush until he was unconscious on the ground. He began remembering when he was still little, fighting and boxing to make a living. His poor mother would heal his wounds and ask why he fought, and he would answer that he wanted to earn money so she wouldn't have to sell those things anymore. Back to the warden, who splashed a bucket of water on Bush and told him to get up. As soon as the warden left, Fluck came running to Bush, gave him an orange to eat, and asked for forgiveness. Later, the warden saw this, went to Beer, and shouted at him, saying, "I gave them to you to discipline them, and you're sending him food." Beer swore he didn't know, and it wouldn't happen again. He went straight to Fluck, threw him to the ground, and started kicking him for bringing food to Bush. Bush couldn't stand seeing his friend get beaten because of him, and went to defend him. Fluck also got angry and started insulting Beer. Total chaos broke out while the warden sat there watching. At that moment, we saw that Frank could no longer remain patient and came to defend Bush. He said to Beer, "What now? Who do you think you are, Tyson or something? Are you going to leave these two boys alone, or am I going to turn this prison upside down? You know what? From today, these two are considered part of my clique." Beer asked him, "Are you all right in the head?" Then Pan appeared and said to Beer, "Fine, me and you will make a deal. We'll take one, and you keep the other." Frank started thinking about which one to take, but in the end they didn't choose to join them, and that is exactly what happened. When Pan's clique arrived and were watching Bush, Pan went to him and told him, "It wasn't me who saved you. I only stepped in to save my friend Frank who defended you." Bush thanked them a lot for standing by him. Frank also introduced himself, and gave him a small sharp object to defend himself with. On the other side, poor Fluke was getting beaten by Beer, and his boys because of that orange he had given to Bush. The next morning, Pan and Frank were waking Bush up. Startled, he jumped and cut Pan's hand because he thought Beer's gang had come to finish him off. Pan said, "Good Lord, what did we do to you?" He reassured him, and told him he was safe with them, and had nothing to fear. From then on, Bush's relationship with Pan and the boys became good. They started laughing and having a good time, unlike poor Fluke, who was stuck washing the guard's underwear and hating his life. At this time, Bush met his girlfriend who came to visit him. She brought him terrible news. She told him, "Your poor mother died in prison, and I handled all the funeral arrangements and organized the wake." She shocked him even more when she said, "This is the last time I will see you because I won't be coming to visit you anymore." Bush became extremely distressed. He could no longer see straight because he lost the most precious thing in this world, his mother. And even his girlfriend, who had promised to wait until he got out so they could marry, abandoned him. Meanwhile, Pan met his father, who told him, "They are releasing you this week. Get yourself together, son, and don't seek trouble. As soon as you get out of here, you're going to live with your aunt." Pan felt betrayed and told his father, "Your wife is more precious to you than I am," because his stepmother didn't want him living with them. A fight broke out between them until Pan left. Returning to Bush, who was walking until he saw his friend Frank surrounded by Beer's gang. Bush charged at them, and a vicious fight broke out until the guards intervened at the last second and broke it up before a catastrophe occurred. Pan stood with Beer and said to him, "Are you really trying to fight my clique?" He replied, "Yes, sir. Just choose a suitable time and I'm with you." When night fell, and everyone was asleep, Beer and his friends came to Fluke. Beer told them, "Fine, I don't need him anymore. Do what you want with him." He essentially gave them the green light to abuse him. And indeed, that is exactly what happened. They took him by force and started abusing him one after the other, until they were finished. At that moment, Fluke began remembering what happened to him before the police caught him. We learned that he was living with a drug dealer. They were sitting together when the dealer got a call. He received news that the authorities were coming for him and he had to flee. When Fluke asked what was happening, the dealer lied to him and said, "I'm going to sleep. Nothing happened." And he vanished immediately. The police arrived and arrested Fluke because they found drugs in the room. So, in reality, Fluke was arrested for something he didn't do. Back to him, we see him exhausted and lying on the ground. He heard Beer whispering with his friends, planning to grind up razors and throw them into Bouch's food the next day to kill him. The next morning, Bush, Pan and their friends were sitting and eating as usual, having fun, while Beer's clique waited for Bush to eat from that plate, to say his goodbyes. At that moment, Fluke came running and snatched the plate from in front of Bush, eating from it quickly to save him. Without realizing it, he fell to the ground writhing in pain, with blood coming out of his mouth because the ground razors tore his stomach from the inside. Bush wanted to save him, but Pan told him, "There's nothing in our hands to do. Let him rest because he is going to die anyway." Bush felt the injustice, and grew furious, attacking Beer and his clique, but Frank and the boys held him back at the last moment, before he killed someone. Pan went to Beer and said, "You've really overstepped. Get your dogs ready because tomorrow we settle this." The next day, they were gathered in the yard wearing military clothes because it was World Environment Day. There, Beer's gang and Pan's gang took the opportunity and started a war in that prison. They were throwing things, and anyone who saw something picked it up and hit the other with it. Pan went after Beer and started fighting him. Suddenly, Beer pulled out a sharp tool he had hidden and stabbed it into Pan's stomach, knocking him to the ground. The guards intervened and separated them with batons. Here, we understand that the prison warden himself was complicit and wanted this chaos to happen to divide the prisoners. Until now, no one knew that Pan was wounded. At night, while Frank was talking to him, he noticed that Pan was covered up, even though it was deathly hot. Bush realized something was wrong, touched Pan's face, and found it cold. When he removed the blanket, they found him bleeding from the wound. The boys were terrified and started screaming for the guards to come help and bring a doctor, but no one paid them any attention. Pan knew his time had come to say goodbye. He told Frank, "Just let the boys go to sleep," and stayed with Bush. When everyone went to sleep, he began advising them to take care of all the boys in this cell because they are just like them. They have no homes, no money, and families waiting. Then he passed away, leaving a world in which he had seen no kindness. The next morning we see his father coming to the warden's office, only to find his son killed. He started screaming at the warden, saying, "I waited all these years for my son to get out, and in the end you tell me he died? How could you let him get killed here like a dog? Don't you have children or what?" On the other side, Butch and Frank went to Pierre to avenge Bank's death. Pierre challenged Butch and told him, "Tomorrow, you and I will meet face to face, and whoever wins has the right to kill the other and be done with him." Without thinking, Butch agreed and gave him his word. Butch went and started sharpening his knife. He sat talking with Frank, saying, "I feel like I'm going to die and go meet my mother." Frank replied, "Get that nonsense out of your head because today we will see who wins and who dies." Anyway, all the prisoners gathered in the bathroom to watch. Frank told Pierre, "Enough with the tricks. Take off what you're wearing." Pierre took off his shirt, and the fight with shivs began between him and Butch. Pierre rushed Butch, stabbed him in the shoulder and left him bleeding. But Butch, with all his bulk and the boxing skills he had learned, knocked him to the ground and started pummeling him. Pierre's friend tried to intervene to save him, but Frank blocked him and stopped him in his tracks. Then Butch grabbed Pierre by the neck and started choking him until he stopped breathing and finished him off. At that moment, the director and the guards came running and started beating the three who remained. Afterward, he took Butch and Frank to a cell and locked them both in. In the morning, the director brought them food and water and said, "If you want to keep eating like this and live comfortably, you must leave this reformatory and go to other prisons that are better than this." Indeed, he decided to transfer them to another prison. In the end, Butch and Frank shared one last look as they boarded the police van, because each was going to a different prison and they might never see each other again. We see Butch being taken to the worst place a person could set foot in, a prison full of nothing but killers and the mentally ill. He lost his youth and the people dear to him, all because of a moment of anger. End of the movie. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more daily movie recaps.